This is the Sheldon House. Unfortunately, the historic district is not open today, so I can't go in and see inside. But this is possibly the Sheldon House where my relatives lived that came from England. Hello, you have found my channel, The Crafty Traveler. My name is Lonnie, and I am a 71-year-old female who loves to camp and travel. I'm saying goodbye to my husband for the next 4 months as I travel across country with my little schnauzer Snickers. We're traveling in my Mini Winnie and towing my Honda. Come and subscribe to my channel and follow our adventures. Thanks for watching. My daughter made this wonderful breakfast for us today. We have buttermilk pancakes with blueberries and my bit of maple syrup, sausages, and tea, and she made herself coffee. Thank you very much. This looks lovely and tastes just as lovely. Good morning, crafty travelers. It's Lonnie. Today is Tuesday, May the 23rd. We are still in Northampton, Massachusetts at a KOA. We had 2 nights here. We'll have 1 more night. Here's our site at the Northampton KOA. We have full hookups, water, sewer, and electric. We're on site A, so we're the first one. We were very grateful that they had a site for us. I hope you liked yesterday's video when we went to Shelburne Falls, and on the way we went to a little maple sugar shack. And then we went to Shelburne Falls and had lunch and saw the falls. Very cute little town, and we walked the Flower Bridge. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and look at it. We did go into Deerfield, but unfortunately the historical district was closed, so none of the buildings were open. I got a couple of pictures. We are going back today to Deerfield because the one museum is opened. I'm going to go to see the museum. The reason I wanted to go to Deerfield was this is where my ancestors from England settled and founded Deerfield. I have an ancestor with the last name of Sheldon, and they lived there during the Deerfield Massacre. And in fact, the oldest member of the family was killed by the Indians. And the daughter-in-law, Hannah Sheldon, and a few children were captured as well as with other members of the village. They returned most of them, including my ancestor, thank goodness, because if she hadn't have been returned, I probably wouldn't be here. Somewhere along the line. If you haven't heard about the Deerfield Massacre, you can look it up. And I'll try and give some information as I go through. Talk to you more later. Bye for now. Richardson's Handmade Chocolates is located in Deerfield, Massachusetts. We did a little side stop to this Richardson's chocolate shop. Wait till you see what we got. We're stopping at Richardson's Candy Kitchen to pick up some chocolates. This is the Sheldon House. But this is possibly the Sheldon House where my relatives lived that came from England.
Originally, it was 2 stories. If you look at the third, you can see the different color bricks. That was added on, I can't remember the date exactly, it was probably 1818 or 1820s, around there. And originally had 2 doors. You can see on this window here an archway. That would have been 1 door, and there would have been a separate door. When the joint library was built in the 1970s, they wanted to mimic what it originally looked like with the 2 separate doors, one for the boys and one for the girls.
So again, this was originally, what was it called?
Deerfield Academy.
Deerfield Academy. So it was a school.
It was a school.
There you go.
And
Okay.
it was boys and girls.
And built in
1797.
1797.
You can take a picture of the represent the pioneers. So we have the grinding wheel here.
And that's George Sheldon wanted to
Sheldon,
represent the pioneers and the Native Americans.
And this slab of rock here, that was a well cover to keep the animals from falling in and polluting them.
The well.
Down on the floor in front of the hearth. I mean, 1 would have been sufficient, but George wanted the more the merrier.
These are the foot warmers.
Yes.
And this is a typical kitchen, but not as much stuff.
Without as much stuff.
This is a kitchen of all kitchens.
I mean, as Kay, who works at the front desk, I think it's it's adapted a bench into a bed, and it's like a Murphy bed. And you pull it down. It would have been in the kitchen because the kitchen would have been the warmest room in the house, and if someone was ill, they could be taken care of by whoever was preparing the food and whatnot, and tending to the sick.
And so this bed was one in George Sheldon's home.
Yeah. Because we have school groups that come through, and the desk came from a 1-room schoolhouse in Conway. Boys on one side, once again, girls on the other. And the Hitchcocks taught here. She taught, Ora White Hitchcock taught in this room here. This is the timeline of them. They were here about 1817, etc. And she was an incredible artist, and she illustrated all of his publications, Edwards, and she put together over here 17 to 1818. So she would be painting and identifying the different plants that she would come across. Where is here?
Mm-hmm.
And she also did the visuals for his classroom. These are dinosaur tracks. And this is a blackboard, literally boards painted black.
Mm-hmm.
And she would also be doing etchings of the landscapes and the mountains, the hills here in the valley. There's another visual that she did of the valleys. And here's Edward, and this is an example of Aura's wonderful artwork. This is from our website showing them out in the field. She with her sketchbook, and he with his instruments. Not only used it on the children, but if someone was misbehaving in the village, you would get whipped.
That's a whipping post. The bell is from the building here.
It must be a Sheldon. There's a lot of Deerfield names in there.
Yeah. There's the Sheldon name. Shot through the Indian house.
So these were installed when we opened up, and as I said, each one tells different stories.
Right.
What happened to the captives?
Right.
The musket through.
This is the door that Hannah was shot through, and the baby was killed.
And the director just left, but he likes to say, depends on which side of the door you're on, who's the terrorist. Because we came over and took the land.
Yes, we did.
You know.
Yes, we did.
But it was the fanciest house at the time in the village. The house was built 1699, and nails were expensive and handmade, so this is showing off to have so many
Nails.
not really necessary nails. But here you can see a belt of nails, and that's where the bolt would have gone down, but the tomahawk right above the bolt, and we're able to stick.
So it was a tomahawk that went through, not a rifle shot.
No, it was, they hacked at it first and then
Okay.
put the musket through.
So the Native Americans did have muskets.
Well, they were from Canada.
Oh, okay.
The 3 different native. I'll give you the website. The website gives you the 3 native perspectives, the English, and the French. So
Okay.
everybody gets a say.
I can learn.
Hotels that were in the center of town here, and when that hotel caught fire, that was the first thing they saved, was the door.
So the door was encased in this
Right.
case.
So that you could see it in the lobby
Right.
when you went into the hotel. The door also had its own board of directors. That's how important it was to the community. Memorial Association in honor of the Pocumtucks that were here. And at the time of the raid, Williams, who was the minister, he had 2 slaves. They perished in the attack. And we installed this memorial plaque after that too.
So the 2 slaves were killed in the attack, and this is the monument to them.
Not just to them, but to many of them. Like this is Lucy Terry Prince, and she's believed to be the first black female poet in America. She lived in the turquoise house, the Wells Thorne, on the corner of the street here. And the only poem that we know that she wrote was about the bars fight. And this is the bars. This was one of the last attacks. That's 1746. We have a copy of the poem that she wrote. But she married Prince. Prince bought her freedom. And she was called the singer of history because she was a great storyteller. And she was baptized in the church here in the village. She and he moved to Vermont, and he was older than her. And when he died, one of the neighbors tried to take her land, some of her land from her. And so she fought it to the Vermont Supreme Court and won. And 2 of her sons fought in the Revolutionary War. So she was,
Pretty important person.
Exactly. This is Stephen, who was taken captive, Stephen Williams, and there's Eunice. Here, previous curator had been talking about how perspective changes from generation to generation. And so we would say, not being politically correct, it's just perspective, And so we would say that she adopted the culture and the customs, and originally she married a savage and became one. That's how strongly they felt at that time when the memorial temples were put in. And here is Parthena and Frank. They were the African slaves, and they would call them Negro servants there.
And that's what they called them in those days.
In this actor, and she wrote this book on tidings from the 18th century about making the clothing, authentic clothing. And so that's exhibit of her. Here is a wedding gown.
The blue one. That's a wedding gown from 1785.
And a wedding vest. And then the different going all the way down to Victorian period.
hats and the parasols all
What I
coordinate.
love about this parasol is, why did they put the planet Saturn on it? It is so unusual to me.
Well, it's the fabric. I don't know. And this must be a morning dress, the black.
I really don't. It's a little fancy for a morning dress, but maybe if you were going out, I don't know. If
And you were in
go out,
morning.
If you were in morning. And these are little boys' dresses. This is a dress that was worn by the son of Boss Tweed, corrupt political boss in New York City.
Oh, okay.
And so this was his son's dress. I don't know why.
Cabinet of shoes and boots. Some of these look kind of modern, or we've used the same style.
The white were usually wedding. The boots here, they were made for a woman, and she died like 6 months. Second World War.
This is the military room. Revolutionary War.
Oldest rag doll that we know of, and she was made for a blind girl, so there's no features on the face, and the fingers are elongated for a touch being important. Heads of 70 people from the same family.
This is a hair wreath, and it's just a form of art.
It's like a
Memorial. But 70 people.
More. And here's another one over there with the picture of the washing.
These are the tool room.
And my favorite thing here is Mac the giant ox, 1,700 pounds.
Wow.
And if you come closer, it puts it into perspective.
Oh my goodness, that's huge.
And then over in this cave, there are pictures of Mac and Jerry. This little guy there, and a gentleman on a rocking chair on his back.
That's amazing. Kinds of shovels and picks and axes.
And here's some Allen sister photographs. The Allen sisters were two sisters living in the village here. Both were school teachers. Both became deaf and turned to photography and photographed everyone in the village here, and also put on pageants in their backyard here, and charged admission and sold postcards and photographs.
Neat. That's a real picture of Mac and Jerry, the
You
big
saw
ox.
Mac and Jerry, right?
Yeah.
Pulling
A children's room. So we have a lot of different toys, I assume.
yeah. Mostly dolls.
Uh-huh. And a dollhouse. Can I see from behind it?
They have their silver collection in it, but this person copied the house and made it livable.
Nice. A children's commode potty
For twins.
for twins. These are period rooms.
You wouldn't have that much stuff.
No.
But,
This is what the dining room might look like. The wallpaper is a reproduction of...
from the Wells Thorne house where Lucy Terry Prince lived. It wasn't there when she was there, but it was later. Revolution with ready-made rugs and ready-made matching furniture, etc.
Victoria bedroom of the Industrial Revolution. Well, there is looks like a quilt on the bed.
Yeah.
A kind of a crazy
crazy
quilt, exactly.
1890s to the 1930s, two women came to town, started collecting embroideries, came up with their own designs, and had the women in the village stitch the different patterns. And they had showrooms, and they'd sell them out of the houses up and down Old Main Street here. And is a map showing you where you could buy different things. But the embroidery had to be perfect before you could put, each one has, not so, you can't see it so well on this, but it's a flax wheel with a D for Deerfield. And like this is a clearer one here. And they were called the Blue and White Society originally. And they were blue and white embroidery. And then they varied it to adding color. And they were all on linen with the threads were dyed with natural plant materials. And you see the D here and the D there. This is more Art Deco or Art Nouveau design. In this room,
We're now in the quilt room.
a group of African American quilters. They were from Philadelphia all the way on the East Coast here. And this is the second example of their work that they've lent us to display.
And when was that made? Just recently?
Recently.
Yeah.
It's 2021.
Okay.
This person here, what do you do with your
There's your ribbons.
ribbons? I'm sure she didn't win all these, but she collected them. And this is a 1930s quilt, and the woman who stitched it, she was a German immigrant, and she was so pleased to be in America, and she wanted to do something patriotic, so she stitched the presidential quilt.
Nice.
Across the Valley Quilting Group, and in the past they would do a quilt challenge and choose something from our collection. And one year they chose this, which is called Broken Dishes. And children, in voting their favorite, they voted on this, and the woman literally put broken dishes wired onto the quilt. She did do the broken pattern, but that was what she added. And these are children's
little sewing machines.
And then the important quilt here is Mrs. Carpenter's Glory. It's an 82,000 piece quilt. 1/4-inch pieces. Paper. And then you could rip the paper.
Paper
so
piecing.
You had some kind of stability.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Do it. And that was a
Treadle
I
machine.
think she was a seamstress, and she took all the scraps of silk that she had and put together that.
On that one.
The oldest one we have is this. It's English fabric, 1800.
1800, that's the oldest one they have. This garment is called the skeleton suit because it was tight-fitting. And here's a picture of the boy wearing it. This is a painted chest that George Sheldon donated.
And that's circa 1718.
1718.
The old Indian house, the Sheldon house.
The barge boards came from the old Indian house, the Sheldon house.
And they would have been up on the eaves of the house, sort of like
Kind of like gingerbread.
fretwork. This is a later window, and then the brackets also came from the overhang of the house. This chest here was in the house at the time of the raid. And this is Connecticut, 1655. And then over here is an enlargement of the Indian house before they tore it down in 1847.
display of local milk bottles. And they used to deliver the milk right to the door. Well, how did you like my video about Deerfield, Massachusetts? It's a place I've wanted to come to ever since I heard that the Sheldon family founded it. Sheldon was my grandmother's maiden name, and another cousin of my mother's had done the genealogy and found out that we were part of the Sheldon family that came over from England and settled in Deerfield, Massachusetts. And then there's the Deerfield Massacre that happened in 1704, in which some of my ancestors were captured by the Native Americans of Canada, not the United States. The local Native Americans, I was told, were friendly with the townspeople. And I think the French had their hand in it. Anyway, they kidnapped many of the townspeople, women and children, and took them on up to Canada and made slaves of some of them. But they did get most of them returned. Some of the children, as they grew up with the natives, they stayed with them. But my ancestors came home. My 7th or 8th grandmother came home, and through her lineage, my family exists. And I've been wanting to hear about that story and see Deerfield, Massachusetts. Even though the museum wasn't open, Tom was nice enough to give me a tour through the museum. I really appreciate that. So if you're ever in Deerfield, Massachusetts area, it's worth going through. And then after June 1st, they have the houses in the town open and tours are available, as well as other educational things. But I was so glad to be here and see what I saw. If you liked the video, give me that thumbs up. Comment, share, and subscribe. Stay crafty, smart, creative, and safe. And thanks for watching.